It finally happened! I finally saw Nosferatu. Was it worth the hype? I'm not even gonna try to bury the lead with this. It was. It absolutely was. Short review if you just wanted to know whether you should go see it this weekend. Do it. Do it. Go see it. This video is going to be spoiler free though, so if you need a little bit more convincing, you can keep watching safely. Nosferatu is the latest from writer-director Robert Eggers and is a remake of the 1922 film of the same name, which itself was a remake. It was an unofficial adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. It was so unauthorized that it was almost completely destroyed. And luckily, Bram Stoker's widow was not successful in destroying the film, so had she been successful, we would not get this movie, and that would be a shame. But the plot is really very much the same as Dracula. If you know the story of Dracula, you have most of the plot. You got it. The original Nosferatu is a classic in German Expressionism, which is an artistic movement of the early 20th century that is characterized by inner emotions as opposed to replicating reality. German Expressionist films rejected cinematic realism in favor of visual distortions and hyperexpression to reflect inner conflict. There was also a previous remake of the original 1922 film Nosferatu the Vampire by Werner Herzog in 1979. I felt that Robert Eggers paid a wonderful tribute to the best parts of both of these films, while obviously bringing his own flavor to the movie. One thing that everyone is definitely going to be talking about, is already talking about with this movie, is the insane visuals. Truly incredible. You could take a screenshot at pretty much any moment of this movie and frame it, and it's a work of art. The framing of the scenes was really great, and there were so many awesome moments where a certain way a character was framed and the movement of the camera enhanced the emotional intensity of a scene, which to me felt very like in true German Expressionist form, just in maybe like a slightly different way than what you would normally think of with German Expressionist films. And I loved intensely the use of shadows and color in this movie. Very muted colors, making everything feel lifeless, even in the lightest, like emotionally lightest moments of the movie. The muted color palette felt like a nod to Werner Herzog's 1979 remake. There were also great nods to the colorized version of the 1922 film, which tinted certain scenes in like blues and greens and pinks and yellows depending on whether it was nighttime, daytime, candlelight, etc. The blue to represent nighttime was iconic in this movie. Obviously, being made over 100 years on, the blue shading looks a little bit more sophisticated, not just kind of like a blue filter put on everything, but it makes the night scenes feel so cold and desolate. Like, I'm obsessed with the vibes, like the blue, like perpetually full moon and night, and the shadows. I always feel like a heightened energy during full moons, like in real life, and I feel like the fact that this movie perpetually looked like it was a full moon out, like with how bright the night was, just made the shadows more intense and just like felt like the energy was up, like it was just more intense. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I also thought the use of yellow tones were kind of expertly used in this. It was really creative. There are a couple of scenes, like interior scenes during the nighttime, when obviously there's a lot of use of candlelight and fireplaces. So like, for example, when Hutter arrives at the inn before heading to Orlok's castle, the intensity of the yellow colors, like from all the different candles and the fireplace, was gorgeous, and it tinted the scene yellow in a way that was a nod to the original, and it was just like a really clever nod to the original. I thought a really clever use of lighting to harken back to this original movie. I also thought some of the changes to the characters were really well thought out and made a lot of sense. I saw quite a number of reviews talking about what Bill Skarsgård looks like in this movie. Particularly, this is like kind of the only spoiler, he's got a mustache. And some people had mixed feelings about that, surprisingly, of all things. I thought he looked very like Vlad Tepes, like Vlad the Impaler, like he looked like that to me, which I thought made a lot of sense for the movie. And I thought it made more sense to make him look a little bit different from Max Schreck's Count Orlok in the original film, just because the history of the look in F.W. Murnau's original film is kind of icky. Orlok's features are very rat-like in the original, which is a stereotype from anti-Jewish propaganda. And the whole idea of Orlok, who is done up in this stereotype bringing a plague to Germany. Like, as much as I love the original, like, the history behind the characterization of Count Orlok is icky. I personally really liked the change to Count Orlok's look, making him grotesque in a, like, just a really real way. Like, he's gross. He's a literal, like, rotting, walking, talking corpse. And I thought it made a whole lot of sense. For vampires as a theme, they're usually meant to represent like sexual deviancy in some way. And this movie definitely leaned into that. This movie was so horny. It was horny and it was gross. And it's all about how sexuality in this society is seen as something not to be discussed. So the depiction of Orlok feeding is both disgusting and it's low-key kind of hot. Which, when it comes to that, I like that we get to see that representation when Orlok is feeding from Thomas Hutter as well as Ellen. But Ellen being the main character, it's more apparent with her, because of course there has to be this huge theme of feminine sexuality. Tale as old as time. Ellen's sexuality literally calls upon a demon and brings this monster to Germany, and it also ends up being the thing that saves everybody. Men's fascination and abject fear of feminine sexuality will never not be hilarious to me. It works for the movie though, only because Lily Rose Depp's interpretation of this character, her performance was so incredible. The physicality, like, I was blown away. I was absolutely blown away. Everyone was amazing. The portrayal of what feels like true heart-stopping terror or possession was magnetic to watch. There were so many scary moments that rely on nothing but a character's facial expressions. For example, like at the climax of the scene when Hutter first arrives to Orlok's castle, like, I wanted to run from the theater screaming, and it was all due to Nicholas Holt's, like, his face, like seeing the changes on his face, especially after hearing Count Orlok's voice for the first time. That, I honestly, scared me to my core. And while we're talking about performances, Bill Skarsgård as Count Orlok, I don't think I'll ever look at that man the same way again. It was incredible and it was terrifying. Like, there wasn't anything about it that wasn't terrifying. I know I was talking about like the sexiness of it, and it's there, but honestly, like, just experiencing him as Count Orlok, like, I was nothing but terrified. The voice, which I heard in interviews, he trained like with an opera instructor to like lower his voice an octave, working with like the placement of voice. Like, I didn't recognize him at all. Like, I was well and truly afraid of him. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the score really quick. The music had these like deep, dark, like shake your bones moments, and then these beautiful strings that would turn like screeching and discordant and dissonant. Same with the choir, like very dissonant chords, which felt like screaming and despair when they were included. So incredibly gorgeous. I love the like highs and lows of this score. Big props to Robin Carolan, hopefully I'm saying his name right, who did the score for this movie. And I learned in looking him up that this is only his second feature film that he has written the music to, the first one being The Northman. So job well done, honestly. I love the music. So if you did stick around and you were still hoping to be convinced of whether or not to go see Nosferatu, go see it. This is one you want to watch in a theater, you want to watch on the big screen. If you wait and then you go and watch it at home, you're gonna be disappointed that you didn't watch it in the theater. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this movie in the comments. I know when the hype is this big for a movie, for some people, it ends up being a letdown. For me, the hype ended up not being enough. In fact, I think some people undersold it to me a little bit. And I would love to know how this compares to Eggers' other work for you. For me, this was his personal best so far. So that means now I can rank all of the horror movies I've seen this year. So that video will be coming next to end out 2024. So until then, thanks for watching. Stay strange. Bye.